Hey everyone, got a tripod now that my camera is situated on. I'm trying a little bit of a new setup. I'm actually recording this too late in the day. Normally I have some really great lighting because there's lots of natural light that feeds in through this window, but I don't have that today because I'm doing this later on Sunday night. I'm trying to squeeze this in before my wife sit down. Well, my wife and I, rather. No, I'm just going to watch her before we sit down and watch the Oscars. We have fun every year doing this sort of ballot stuff, and even though I haven't seen a good majority of the films, I meant to see Birdman. It's now on demand. I meant to watch, what's the other one? There's another one I wanted to watch, but I haven't quite seen just yet. But anyway, so we like watching that, and it'll give me a chance to play Kirby and Majora's Mask, so the fact that I can play uninterrupted video games for 3 hours or whatever it is that the Oscar goes on for, not such a bad deal. But wanted to squeeze in this Q&A. Wanted to get to your questions for 3 Beers Deep. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're one of the people that have asked me many times, hey, Patrick, please put this out in podcast form, you are in luck, sir. There is now a podcast version of 3 Beers Down. It is under the new podcast, Inventory Management. It's a sort of catch-all podcast that I've launched that will have not only 3 Beers Deep, but my newly launched sort of spinoff, kind of called Story Time, in which I go in-depth on the stories that I'm working on at Kotaku and elsewhere, kind of talk about my process and how I feel about the stories that I publish and some of the reporting that went in to some of those. So you can you'll get the audio versions of 3 Beers Deep, you'll get the audio version of Story Time, and you'll get my interviews, basically Interview Dump Truck 2.0, or at least my contributions to it. That will all come through Inventory Management. It's live on iTunes. You can also go to, what is it, inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm. There are links right below this video that'll explain everything to you, but you can get that on your podcast feed of choice. There's an RSS feed that you can just dump in there, and so even though it's live on iTunes, for ease of access, you can grab Inventory Management just about anywhere else. But with that in mind, let's cheers to the Rockies, the Silver Bullet. Is the Rockies a different one? Maybe that's not Coors Light. I can't remember. Anyway, Anonymous asks, Yo Scoops, I remember you reading about comics and having Marvel Unlimited. You should try the Comixology app. It's really good compared to it. Oh, and if you want something to read, you should read Image Comics Saga. It's Star Wars with amazing characters and dialogue. It's got crazy good diversity and representation. Would love to know your thoughts. That's actually a really good point. I haven't signed up for Comixology, but I kind of made my way through the Marvel Comics or Cosmic arc. Rather, that I've been working on the last couple of months. I finally kind of pushed through and read the Thanos Initiative, I think Thanos, whatever, one of these Thanos arcs from a couple of years ago. It kind of filled in a lot of the gaps, sort of things that have been hinted at in Guardians of the Galaxy and hinted at in, obviously, the upcoming Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. So I still might poke around in the Marvel stuff, but I'm sort of tempted to cancel that and possibly sign up with Comixology and read some stuff in comics that is beyond the scope of just Marvel. So if people have some recommendations, feel free to drop them in the comments below this video or shoot them to me over on Tumblr or email, whatever works for you. I'm happy to look into some of those because I would absolutely love to read some killer other comics. Spider-Man asks, Hey Patrick, I'm watching the X-Files for the first time ever. Should I just start at season 1 and watch it all the way through? You could. The X-Files does not stay consistently a quality show. I want to say it's not 1-to-1, but around the time that it goes widescreen is around the time that the quality dip starts to happen, I think. I have not watched the entire series from start to finish recently. I watched like the first 5 seasons or so in the run-up to the release of the second film. Which was not a good movie. I enjoyed it because they brought back a major character in it, and that was cool. But as far as it being a watchable film and something that was enjoyable and that I'd ever like to do again, I don't. I'll put it this way. I don't own that movie on Blu-ray. I own Fight the Future. I think Fight the Future, which is the first of the X-Files films, was fantastic. What I'm hoping for, well, I guess I should answer your question. The question is, you should watch it till you dislike it, and then stop watching because it doesn't get better. It's kind of the kind of where it goes. Like, it's not I know people have strong feelings about Lost and other shows like that, but sometimes there are shows that hit a quality sort of wall. Like they get crappy for a while and they figure themselves out as they're going towards the finish line. X-Files did not do that. X-Files, once it started dipping, sure, you can make arguments that some of the later seasons when the T-1000 got involved, I mean that mostly as the actor Richard Dockett. That might have been actually his character on the show. Anyway, David Duchovny, Fox Mulder, left the show for a little while due to a contract dispute, and then they tried to keep going without him. And so watch it until you don't like it, and maybe stop watching. Perhaps there'll be a reason to finish it if they're actually truly going to do an X-Files revival, as has been hinted. There's been talk of doing sort of a True Detective or sort of a short run on Fox in which they reunite Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, which I would be all for. I wouldn't want them to actually do new seasons of the X-Files, like a full 24 or 23 episode season, but I'd love for them to do a one case, 13 episode arc, or maybe multiple cases with one thematic arc that's kind of going over it. To make it short, just awesome. That's what I want. I want to revisit that world maybe one more time, and I think that's something that could be pretty cool. So hopefully that happens. I bet it'll happen just because the principal people involved want to do it. Chris Carter wants to do it as the creator. David Duchovny wants to do it. Gillian Anderson wants to do it. It's like if everyone wants to do it, it's probably going to happen. Anonymous asks, why are you coughing? Oh, because you need another beer? Sure. This generation has been kind of a letdown for me so far. Remember last generation when Gears of War and Bioshock wowed everyone with their gameplay and story innovations? I feel like that's missing from this generation so far. Maybe it's not even possible to have that kind of moment again, at least with current technology, but it sure would be nice. I can sympathize. I agree with you that the current generations of machines, that we're specifically talking about the consoles, have not lit the world on fire, at least in terms of I paid all this money. I paid $1,000 for both of these devices. Most of the games I'm playing on them, I can play on the PC. Most of them I have played on the PC, and there are just versions that are less demanding of my graphics card on the PS4 or Xbox One. But in terms of what Microsoft and Sony as sort of content producers they haven't made really compelling arguments for either of their machines so far. I think I've enjoyed a little bit more of what's appeared on the Xbox One. I think Sunset Overdrive might be my favorite new gen game so far, but I liked it. I didn't love it, and I think it could be a much better sequel. But I'm mostly enjoying a lot of my stuff on PC. You know what? Weirdly, the Wii U, the Nintendo. I am playing Majora's Mask on 3DS and the new Kirby game on Wii U, and I'm loving both of them. I'm really digging both of those games. And Nintendo, more than Microsoft, more than Sony, in the last couple of years, where have I gotten the most enjoyment? Where have I had the most fun? Where have they been the best games? On Nintendo's platforms. They may be struggling as a company. They may be financially having trouble making it to the highs they had before. But as a game player, as someone that just wants to play the best games, Nintendo is providing hand over fist such high-quality experiences over and over and over again. I'm interested in playing the Order, and we'll get to the Order in a question that's going to come up a little bit later. But, you look at Sony's first-party output, not super encouraging. And all Microsoft is doing a little bit better. Not super great either. But I think that 2015 could potentially be a watershed year for at least these machines. I'm not going to say a watershed year for video games, because that is high praise that I cannot necessarily back up based on what I've seen of the games that are scheduled for this year so far. But I think it is possible that this is finally the year where these machines come into their own. I'm excited for the new Batman game and the other stuff that is yet to be announced. Cross your fingers that we get Fallout 4 in time for the holidays. If we get Fallout 4 this year, it's all good. Everything's fine, dude. That's all I want. Though theoretically, you could be playing that on the PC because it's a third-party game. And I think the thing that I kind of go back to is the struggles of first-party development so far this cycle have not necessarily been all that impressive. Anonymous asks, is Monster Hunter any fun to play alone? I mostly played it alone when I played Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I think that's what it was called on Wii U. I played a little bit on 3DS. But I pretty much played my 10 to 15 hours of that by myself, and I did enjoy it, but I can't really say that I got into the meat of Monster Hunter. I mostly kind of scratched the surface, got a cursory understanding of what that series is about, why it's interesting, and that's what allowed me to write an article and do a quick look of that game at the time while I was at Giant Bomb. Funny enough, I got dinner over this weekend with a bunch of family, and I ended up getting situated next to a freshman in high school, this little girl who's a cousin of mine, and she's super into video games. Like, I can have a conversation that I could have with any one of you that is watching this, and she could hold her own. For example, I was asking her kind of what game she plays, and she said, well, I was, really into Skyrim, but I prefer Oblivion. And I was like, the fact that you can say that, it touches my heart. I have never played Oblivion, so I don't have an opinion. I couldn't even render one. It was impressive that she was able to render an opinion that I couldn't. I'm paid to do this, but the fact that she was able to say, I prefer Oblivion over Skyrim. I can only be so lucky to have a child that interested in video games. But she plays a ton of Monster Hunter. She's obsessed with the third one on her 3DS, and I promised I would buy her Monster Hunter 4 just because she was so dang enthusiastic, and I was so smitten with how into it she was that she has played hundreds of hours of Monster Hunter 3 by herself. She has not played with friends. I think, as she explained it, and I'm going to trust her on this one, that the 3DS one of Monster Hunter 3 doesn't allow you to play against people over the internet. You can do it locally, but in order to do matchmaking and online with other folks, you had to play on Wii U, and I believe that has been sorted out on the fourth version, which is only on 3DS and not on Wii U. So take it from her. Sydney says you can play Monster Hunter by yourself. It seems like that's perhaps not the way to play. My understanding is that it is best played as a co-op game with a big group of hunters, but it is a game that you can play yourself. And hey, Sydney did it. If she can do it, you can probably do it. Anonymous asks, are you surprised at some of the backlash the games media is getting from fans of The Order due to the reviews? Is it a bias against Sony exclusives? I'm not understanding what the devs' intent of the game was. Oh, no, he's saying, is it the reason that there's backlash? Is it bias against Sony exclusives? Not understanding what the dev intent of the game was. I think it's a pretty simple explanation. I think there are not a lot of video games out right now. The Order is a hardware exclusive. For whatever reason, people get really invested and tied up emotionally and psychologically with a certain hardware platform doing better than one another, or a game being good. I take the perspective that I would like every game to be good. There's no reason for a game to be bad. That would suck. It had been indicated to me from folks I had talked to within Sony that The Order was not a particularly good game, that Ready at Dawn had bit off a little bit more than they could chew, and that while it was a technically impressive game, and they're a studio that had been founded and had been successful at building on stuff that was already there. So it's why the God of War games were so good, and the other stuff that they've worked on. So I think there's potential for an Order sequel to be pretty amazing, or at least significantly better, because it seems like there's not, it wouldn't be hard to top what's already there in The Order. But that said, I think it really does, sort of the backlash, some of the hyperbole surrounding the reviews largely has to do with the fact that it's a console exclusive in a period in which there's not a lot going on, and so people get themselves kind of whipped into a frenzy. And I think it's weird. I can't get invested in that the way that some people do. And you read message board threads that are 100 pages deep about reviews for a game that isn't out yet. Why? What is going on? This game at no point ever deserved that much attention. It seems like it could have been a pretty cool game. I was excited about it. It's a steampunk horror action game. What's not to like? Well, it appears to be that the game is what's not to like. But I was always puzzled and sort of never quite understood what all the fuss was about. And I think you can't. I think you can explain it pretty easily, even if the explanation is not necessarily satisfying, and that people just get whipped up by exclusives, and they should stop. If you're one of those people, stop doing that. It's not healthy. It's just not. Let's see what we're at in time. 15 minutes. Continuing along. Anonymous asks, I went back and checked the Bombastica to see if you commented on it. How crazy is that Amy Hennig has a design credit for Chaos in the Windy City? That's you're not the first person to notice that. I noticed that as well. And I have, in the past, reached out to Amy Hennig and said, I don't know when we'll do this. You're a busy person. But one day, I would like to talk to you in depth about your work on Michael Jordan's Chaos in the Windy City. If you're not aware of Chaos in the Windy City, it is a not good 2D action platformer for the Super Nintendo in which Michael Jordan is collecting various elemental basketballs of the frozen variety, of the fire variety, and he is throwing them at bad things like robots and mutants and things. It's not a good game. It's not. I don't like it. I tried to play it, and I did a bum basket for it, and I did not particularly care for my time with it. But when I DM'd her and I let her know, like, hey, think it's fascinating that you worked on this. Would love to talk to you about it at some point. She said, I have a box full of original design documents and sketches about that game. I don't know where it is, but I could find it sometime. So now, obviously, she's off busy working on Star Wars for Visceral Games and Electronic Arts. But in the back of my mind, at some point, one day down the line, I will interview Amy Hennig about Chaos in the Windy City, and it's going to be my crowning achievement as a video game journalist. Anonymous asked, do you know why various gaming outlets seem to be ignoring or glossing over the fact that the Master Chief Collection is still in a very broken, buggy state? Well, functionality has improved since release for entering matchmaking by yourself, partying up with friends, and trying to have prolonged sessions still results in hours of frustration more often than not, with people having to force quit and then relaunch the game, hard reset their Xbox, and so on. Shouldn't 343 be taken to task? You know, I can say that I have been looking into why the Master Chief Collection shipped in such a broken state. I wish I could say more about what I have found. I'm hopeful that at some point I will be able to file something to Kotaku that sheds a little bit of light on how that might have happened. I'm not in a position to share too much about that right now. I'm not in a position to promise that article will happen, but I can promise you that I am looking into it and have been talking with various people to try and get a sense of how a game ships like that. And it's not so much that a game ships broken, it's that a game ships broken and then continues to be broken months after the fact. You know, it's one thing for a day one patch to not solve all the problems, but we're not. Assassin's Creed Unity, not only was it a buggy game, it was a bad game. The Master Chief Collection does not appear to be a bad game, but it is a buggy game. Is it a bad game because it's a buggy game? Sure. But there is a way to imagine in which a bunch of patches are issued for that game, the matchmaking is figured out, and then it's just some pretty great high-definition Halo for fans of that series. And the fact that it hasn't gotten to that state yet is troubling. And the fact that they haven't been able to get to that state yet is troubling. The fact that they were considering doing a beta test for a patch is troubling, especially when they decided to cancel that beta, which it's a mess. Unfortunately, I have not been able to sort of seal the deal on the story I would like to report, but do know that I am taking it seriously. I can't speak for other outlets. I can only speak for the work that I am doing, but I am trying to look into that so I can paint a picture. Hopefully that's something I can do in the months ahead. If not, that's on me, and I apologize for that, but do know that I'm looking into it. Anonymous asks, hi Patrick, I'm new to your work, but I've already read quite a few articles and watched your videos on here. I think you have a great writing style, and your videos are very engaging, so thanks. Cheers. I'm going to go raise a glass to you, Mr. Anonymous. Forgive me, this has already been asked. What do you think of the fate of MMORPGs? I ask this only because I play Guild Wars, Lord of the Rings Online, a bit of WoW, and Rift. They all seem very empty, with the exception of WoW, which is empty until level 80 stuff. Thanks. Well, I do think the age of World of Warcraft is over, and I don't mean that World of Warcraft is over. I'm saying that the model that World of Warcraft built and that so many games have tried to copy, so many games have tried to chase, so many games have tried to emulate, and done so far more than they have succeeded, failed to do so. I think that is kind of coming to an end. I think WoW will continue to be a staple for years to come. I think WoW will continue to be a force for years to come. Obviously, its numbers are going to dip, but I think WoW will be around for a very, very long time, long beyond 2015. Far longer than any of us can probably predict, and far longer than maybe makes some of us comfortable, maybe makes Blizzard comfortable, and yet it will continue to be a thing. I think it is a force to be reckoned with that will remain sort of part of gaming's library for some time to come. But in terms of what happens to sort of the genre going forward, I think that's either for Blizzard to figure out, and if they can figure it out and capitalize on it twice, that would be something awfully impressive. But I think there's an opportunity for someone else to come in, redefine what it means to be an online game, redefines what MMO means. I think the term MMO is sort of tainted at this point, because I think it means that WoW model, which, you know, the most recent example of that was Elder Scrolls Online, which by all accounts appears to have not done particularly well, given that the update that they're putting out, the sort of repackaged version, is $60 and then no subscription fee. When you drop a subscription fee, that means your game is not doing as well, and I think that follows for Elder Scrolls Online. And I think Elder Scrolls Online, we may see more games that are kind of WoW-like, but I would be hard-pressed to imagine there will be another game publisher that invests the resources on the level of Elder Scrolls Online or Star Wars ever again. Not to say there won't be big, massive online investments. I think there will just be fundamentally different types of games. I think we have maybe stretched this approach as far as we can go, and someone else has to come up with something fresh. Maybe it's something like Destiny. Maybe it's taking the MMO elements and bringing them over to other genres, in which we've seen the RPG infest so many different genres in a good way. Maybe it's the MMO part that then becomes more distinct in other types of games going forward. We'll just have to see. Anonymous asks, do you watch any Giant Bomb stuff these days? Any favorite features or quick looks? Unfortunately, I have been extremely busy, so I've not had a time to watch as much as I'd like to these days. Often I would end my day by trying to tune into a video for a little bit, but I've been doing a lot of my own streaming, whether out of the cards office or out of here at home. So I just haven't had the time that I've had in the past to dedicate to checking in on that stuff. I do watch every once in a while. I watch part of the Majora's Mask quick look just because it made me so happy that even though I've left, that Dan Reichert has picked up the Majora's Mask flag and run with it proudly, perhaps more enthusiastically than even me. And to know that he is fighting the good fight on the Bombcast against Brad, against Jeff, especially against Jeff, makes me especially happy. So while I can't say that I've been tuning in lately, you know, it's something that will always be sort of a part of what I enjoy. What I used to be my favorite thing, and will probably continue to be my favorite thing, is on Friday evenings is to crack open a beer, start watching Unprofessional Friday, and use that as a way to wind down my night. And I imagine that will be something that I continue to do for many months to come. Anonymous asks, just listen to the Encyclopedia Bombastica with Paul Good on Giant Bomb. Did you really go to E3 when you were 13 and your voice hadn't cracked yet? Also, who is better to battle Tetris Gaiden, you or Brad? I can answer the last one quickly. It is Brad. He's very good at those games. I do have a copy of Tetris Battle Gaiden. It is over here. Right here. But unfortunately, I don't have a Super Famicom to play it on. But I think, right, like it can go in a SNES, but I need a converter because I don't think there's a hardware lockout on the Super Nintendo, but there is a well, there's not like a hardware lockout on the machine itself. There's a hardware lockout because I think the cartridges are shaped differently. But anyway, yeah, Brad is better at those games than I am. As to your first question, yes, I did go to E3 when I was 13 years old. The first one I went was 13 in Atlanta, Georgia. E3 1998. E3 was in LA, then it was in Atlanta for 2 years, and then I went to the second one in Atlanta where Half-Life and Metal Gear Solid were shown for the first time in America, I believe, as memory recalls, although my memory is a little bit, as you might understand, a little bit shaky on that point. But nonetheless, I went with my dad. He organized a work trip out to Atlanta, Georgia, and then you were able to qualify for underage badges. They were pink. I have one somewhere buried in a box in which it said underage media, and I was 13, and I was definitely underage because the weird noise is coming from outside. The age to go to E3 was 18, and so I had underage badges up until I was 18 years old. I think maybe around the time I was 17, I might have. I don't know if they had even had underage badges anymore, and I think I was just having other people pick up my badge for me, and then I wouldn't have been able to do that these days. Now they're much more strict, and in addition to that, like post 9/11, they just are way stricter about just like things in general when it comes to E3. So I don't think I would have been able to do what I did when I was 13, but I fortunately had parents that were interested and encouraging of what I wanted to do. I remember going up into their bedroom and just saying, I'd like to go to this convention in Atlanta. It's about video games. It's for this website that I've been kind of goofing around with online. It's for Gamers Online with a Z. And rather than laughing at me, my parents encouraged me. My dad went with me, and he actually went to some of the booth appointments with me. I went to go see ASCII Software, who did some N64 skateboarding game that I can't remember. and he sat in on the demo with me. I remember showing up, them thinking that my dad was probably the person that was there for the demo, but it turns out it was me, and then my dad sat in a chair and took a nap. I believe he might have snored at one point too, which was very cute. But I cheers to Tom Klepek. Couldn't have done it without him taking a risk on my goofy idea. Wouldn't be doing this when we're talking to you guys right now, if not for that. So, cheers. Last two questions. Hey, Mr. Horrorman, I was listening to some old Bombcast, and I was wondering, did you ever get around to playing Eternal Darkness? No, but I really, really want to. I found my GameCube up at in a box around here, and so I need to dig that out. Although I think you can play Eternal Darkness on the Wii, right? So I guess I need to play Eternal Darkness on my Wii. I should bring that into the cards office, and maybe when we finish playing Demon Souls, maybe Eternal Darkness might be next up on the docket. I think that'd be fun to play through as something a little, instead of doing that for Spookin' with Scoops, maybe we do that outside of that, or maybe we'll make that a Spookin' with Scoops feature, because I've not done a proper live stream for Spookin' with Scoops yet. I might have to get some fun background stuff for that if I'm actually going to do one of those, but we'll see. But I do want to play through Eternal Darkness. I think I played like 90 minutes. I played a bit of it, and coincidentally enough, I think I was playing it around the time when my father passed, and so I stopped playing it, and that was not a game I was playing anymore. And then I got 6 months away from it, and then just never got back to it. But believe you me, I would like to play some more Eternal Darkness, and we will get around to doing that sometime in the near future. Last question. Any insight on why games are so terrible when it comes to subtitles? Still not really any standard for where to put them in the options. The fonts they use make them nearly unreadable sometimes. Typos, grammar problems are way too common, etc. I think games, generally speaking, have a they don't necessarily take accessibility super seriously. I think it's been encouraging to see the amount of developers that have incorporated colorblind features and other such options into games, but I think we kind of have a long way to go in games taking that as seriously as they should. I think as games continue to expand into wider and wider audiences in which the needs of those types of audiences changes, I think we'll see more and more games take that into account. I think the hardware manufacturers could help out here. This could be something that they mandate, that in order to ship a game on their platform, you need to make sure your game qualifies for X, Y, and Z. We demand that for the quality of games, even though we've seen, obviously, in the case of Assassin's Creed and Halo, games that ship not quite at the bar of quality I think we've all come to expect or desire from our purchases and when we spend $60. But I think there's an opportunity for the gatekeepers, whether it be Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo or Valve or whoever, to say that, hey, like, we're going to take this seriously. We want more than the traditional audience that has bought games to be able to enjoy these. We need to take that stuff into account, and I think that includes subtitles. I think that includes colorblind correction. I think there are all sorts of things that games could go a little bit further down in order to make their games, while it's appealing to a smaller audience, an audience in which most of the people playing your game aren't going to need these things. The people that do need them really do, and I think it shows a proper amount of respect for the folks out there that want to enjoy this medium, and I think more games could do it. So with that, that's the slightly shorter version of 3 Beers Deep. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Once again, you can go to inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm or look up Inventory Management on iTunes to get the audio version of 3 Beers Deep and a lot of the other things that you find on this YouTube channel. Please review the podcast on iTunes. The reviews really help that get populated, and it helps it get spread around. It's kind of how iTunes does the rankings. So please review Inventory Management on iTunes if you get a second. Other than that, yeah, tell people about this channel.